Welcome back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling, the after party. I am Jessie Sage. I'm the host of When We're Not Hustling, and we are going to be talking about Anna today, who has a woman of many names.
That's right.
So many
aliases. At least 20. Right?
At least 20. Yeah. I thought it was funny. I said that because I'm like Anna, like just Anna, or
just
Honey
Anna.
Whipped Feta.
We'll just leave it there. That would be so, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Freya. Well, one of my aliases is Emily Foster, the producer of When We're Not Hustling. And I am here before we dive into this to remind you to like, subscribe, comment, share, do anything you can to spread the word. We're working hard on this.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I'm Jessie's mom. I'm a drop-in guest.
Yes, a drop-in guest.
I don't know why. I don't know why Jessie wants me to come on and talk about sex workers. I don't know why.
Because the people demand it.
Our audience loved you. It wasn't up to us.
Well, it's so funny. People were so willing to hate me. And Emily, you just killed me at the after party after my episode with Jessie. You were going, God, I really did not want to like her at all because I was Team Jessie. Oh, I so get that.
And it was not against you as a human, but
no, absolutely not.
With mother-daughters, it's like, and I'm both a mother and a daughter. And I was like, no, I am on Jessie's side. Moms and daughters are hard things. And then I got about 20 minutes in and I'm like, oh, fuck, I love them both. Okay.
It's hard on both sides. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm both. I already knew that going in, but
I know.
I was at a baby shower yesterday for my partner's favorite colleague, and her mom was there, and we're sitting there, and then they're asking me, the mom, so the daughter is our friend, right? And she's talked about how hard her mom is, and her mom was there sitting talking to me, and she was like asking me about my kids, and I was like, oh, I have an older adult daughter, and she's like, oh, where does she live? And I said where she lived, and she's like, oh, do you get to see her? And I was like, well, daughters are difficult sometimes. And she was like, mm-hmm. And suddenly I was like, oh, okay.
I am not alone. Right.
I am not alone. But it was just funny because you tend to think about it's just complicated. Yeah, it's just complicated. But yeah, the people demand you. Yeah. They were like, you should have your mom back. So we enjoy having you here.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you. It's fun to be here. This is really outside of everything that I do. So it's a good opportunity. Demands a lot of growth out of me, actually. I had to think, I have to concentrate. Never mind.
Yeah.
We can just
no, I actually want to hear about that.
That's very valid. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think that now that you've been on 2 of the shows, listened to a bunch of them, what do you feel like? Do you feel like hearing a bunch of different stories from a lot of different people has changed your perspective, or how's the experience been like for you?
I can't say that it's changed my perspective because my perspective really changed with you, right? Yeah. With you. What it did do is it showed me how varied it is, right? How it has been interesting to see these people all in sex work, but in a different way.
Yeah.
A different way. And so, there's certainly people that are more likable, more engaging, more charismatic than others, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know why I bring that up, just to say that I've been able to relate to some people more than others. Mostly what I have gleaned from it is that it is such hard work. I don't think it. I don't know. Well, I'm older, right? I don't want to work that hard at anything anymore. But I mean, even back at the day,
Amen.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. I don't want to work that hard anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've also appreciated on the show how honest people have been. And the things that I've really appreciated hearing is that how difficult money is for everybody and what that represents to them and how powerful it is. And how they've all had to struggle with, well, maybe not all of them, had to struggle with the stigma and feeling like they've had to hide from the largest parts of their life, you know.
Yeah.
But man, that must be hard.
Yeah.
You know, it
I've
must be
said a
tiring.
lot, but like I think it's true. And I think I'm glad you brought up the money part, but this came up in this episode too. Like,
Yeah.
sex work is a working class job. Like, people who are in it, like, have gotten into it for a lot of different reasons, but many of them are that they like have struggled with money in some way or another, you know,
Sure.
and um people who
Or
have
their ability to make it
right, people who
in a
are
more traditional
resourced,
way.
people who have family money, people who are you know, I mean, there are a lot of highly educated people, but like that doesn't matter because education doesn't bring you money necessarily,
No,
you know.
it does
Yeah.
Um,
not.
most
No.
of the people who are working in sex work who are highly educated are also first generation college, you know, like haven't been like primed
Yes.
into like certain career trajectories. You know, they went and did the college thing, but then like it didn't materialize.
That
There
was a
wasn't
lot.
nepotism to help with the next step.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
right. And I feel like there's, you know, and I'm not saying that it's because sex work is a bad job or anything like that, but like for the most part, resource people don't go into sex work, you know. um, you know, they do it because it is a way to gain a lot of resources that aren't available to you otherwise. And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind. And so I think it's interesting that you bring that up. But yeah, for most of the people that we're talking to, they have an intense relationship to money because either they didn't have it or they don't know how to manage it or it's just them. I mean, I think when we had Body by Blunts on, they brought that up. They were like, I have to make this work because there's not like somebody else who's going to pay my bills. I can't ask parents for money. I don't have that outside of myself. So how do you develop a safety net? You do it um outside of mainstream things that aren't for you.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Yeah. And in ways
And
that
then,
allow you to do it. Talks like a lot of our guests is raising children.
yeah,
You know, we've got people who have disabilities, mental and physical.
yeah,
Raising a child is a disability. You can't go anywhere
right,
when you're in the
right.
midst of doing that, you know, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and having that, like, having a job that brings in enough to cover the bills on a schedule like that, that you can manage yourself while you're managing these other things in your life that are hugely important. It's like,
yeah,
you
Yeah.
know, I get it.
yeah, right,
You know,
yeah,
I've
yeah,
often made the comment that the work that I do is right next to it. You know,
yeah,
the
yeah,
creative work that I do is lives in those same spaces. Like, I work when my clients need it. I show up when they're ready, not when I'm ready. I do what they have in mind. You know,
yeah,
if I'm lucky,
Right.
get to bring some of myself to it. But
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
intense, and it,
It's
mhm,
you
intense.
know, we don't have. I read about Europe, and they've got child leave and sick
Yeah.
leave that lasts months
yeah,
and sometimes years. And we're over here like, oh,
I know.
I had,
Trudging
I
away.
I had
Yeah.
over a foot, like, I had parts of my body removed. I was in the hospital for over 2 months. I had over 7 surgeries.
yeah,
And I
That
think
was you,
that
Emily? That was you? Are
yeah,
you talking
that
about?
that's that
Wow.
happened to me. Yeah,
Ugh.
and that's when I went from working full time in an office with some side gigs to always working for myself. And I think that, and let me just say, I worked for an incredible company, amazing people. Still to this day, I am so in love with those owners. They're just like
Yeah.
my loves. all of the employees banded together and donated their time off to add to the
Oh,
family medical leave that was there. And as a result, I got 30 days additional time off after being in the hospital. That's with an amazing
yeah,
generosity of
Right.
my co-employees who
Yeah,
yeah,
your
decided that
coworkers.
they
Yeah.
would have less time off.
yeah,
And that's how I got a month. That combined with what I think federal leave gave me 2 weeks, something like that. It's
oh my
all very
gosh,
murky,
yeah,
obviously. I just
Mhm.
got
right,
out of some crazy hospital stuff. But like, even with the most understanding bosses, traditional jobs do not make room for
no,
what the
They don't.
reality is.
Yeah.
no,
Like, I
not
had
in our
less
country,
time
yeah,
to recover than I had in the hospital.
yeah,
Like,
hmm,
and that's how
yeah,
America works. And
right,
after experiencing that and then talking to all of these people, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I can see how you would end up in this work. That makes sense. Like this
yeah,
this this work would allow you to take a month off if you needed to,
right, right,
Mhm.
like if you
yeah.
planned for everything correctly and had your work set up.
Well,
But
yeah, and if you're like
yeah,
established, and I've seen this like a lot, like some of my I just saw a friend of mine in New York who was like, I have some unexpected bills coming up. Well, can I have clients prepay in full dates that I will like honor next month or something? And I'm assuming that that worked because
right.
often you don't do those things unless they like work, and you know, you can, once you have like your group of regulars who are like supporting your life, like figure out how to move stuff around. And like my mom and I were talking about this when on her episode, like when my sister got sick, like, or when my sister got in her car accident and I flew out there, like I just moved everything. I was like, I didn't lose anything. It
Right.
meant I was a little bit more busy when I came back, but like it was fine.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I got to go to San
Yeah.
Diego. And people were like, of course, go to San Diego. It's not like anyone gave me shit for that.
Yeah.
Like, one of my clients paid for all of her laundry and was because he's yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I have a thing of laundry. And he's like, here, how much does it cost? I'll cover it, and that was just very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
Very supportive.
yeah. So, which was a lot of money. She had a lot of laundry to do. So anyway, um, yeah, I think yeah, let's get to Anna, but I do appreciate what you say, Mom, because I do think those are kind of the themes that are coming out of all of these
Yeah. Yeah.
episodes is like how hard it is to make it in the United States is one of them.
Yeah.
Especially for people who aren't
Hmm.
born into wealth with a lot of like opportunities and um yeah, and I what I really liked about Anna and what Anna was talking about is Anna's gone into tech. She set up her own like social media and marketing strategies in particular. She set up her own website, which she calls honeywhippedfeta.com, which is very cute, I think. And is writing, blogging, doing her own thing. But that, speaking of work, is so much work. She's running vanilla jobs. She's still doing her like clips and like all of her sex work stuff. And on
No.
top of that, she's running this website, which I'm sure isn't making any money, but it's like creating a thing for her to
It's
fall back
yeah,
on.
it seems to be making money in a similar way to the way that social media exposure would work.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it is providing that content that then provides the dates that provide the money. But
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, it's a lot of work to maintain a site like she's describing. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God.
Mhm.
And she's,
Right. Yeah.
amazing. But I really appreciated her insight. I
Yeah.
am a person who came just, I mean, all of us, we were born before the internet was a big
Yep.
Yeah.
thing. It was, our childhoods didn't include that. And
Yep.
when it showed up, it was something that showed up as we were older and we
Yeah.
had more developed brains to interact with it. And,
I have to
she's a
say,
part of
I
that.
am so grateful for that.
Yeah.
I am
Right.
so glad I had
I'm
a childhood
torn. It
without the
depends.
internet.
Yeah. I go both ways on that. Because for all of its, and yes, there's a million pitfalls, and I have a huge attention span. I can still read a book in 2 days and just love
Yeah.
it, like, yes. But also the intense loneliness that I experienced
Mhm. Mhm.
as a weirdo.
Mhm.
I was one of 3 or 4 people on the island of Kauai really getting into Tolkien.
Mhm.
Imagine if I
Right.
had, I mean, we
Yeah.
know now
Yeah.
how many
Yeah.
people were into Tolkien when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and all of that intense alienation that I internalized and
Mhm.
not good enough because um, I'm not short and brown and really
Mhm.
interested in surfing. Those are
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
not
For
my
those who
interests.
don't know,
So
Emily
I'm a
grew up in
bad person.
Hawaii. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I said quiet, didn't get but like, I do see a sense of belonging
Yeah.
and an emotional stability that I'm missing, not the different emotional
Yeah.
instabilities that
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
also come with it, but the community that it provides. And, I remember those early Tumblr days, and
Mhm.
I wasn't a kid, but I felt like one. Finding
Mhm.
all these people who talked, like, used the phrases that I loved and
Mhm.
had ideas like mine. And oh, oh, like, never felt so relaxed to be boring. Never in my life have I, like, those early internet
Yeah.
days when I first discovered other weirdos like me. It was
Mhm.
like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
like, so I do uh, conceptualize missing that. I
Yeah.
can think of that. I don't know
Yeah.
what it actually would be like. I don't know,
Yeah.
but oh, the community that they all got to grow up with. They got to be
Yeah.
weirdos with other weirdos.
Yeah, and I,
Like,
I I see that on a lot
That's
with like
true.
queer people from smaller communities who don't have like queer communities. The kids are growing up like
mhm,
having like spaces. But I also think that like I don't know. I feel so conflicted about it because I mean, I say this as I'm like putting together a YouTube show so that like other sex workers could feel more like part of a
right.
community. So like I very much participate in internet culture, but I feel like um it's a double-edged
Hmm.
sword. It's
Yeah.
just it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even Anna said it herself. I mean,
Yeah.
didn't she say that she was brought up um, with way too much
With
time
way too
allowed
Yeah.
much
on the internet? Yeah.
unrestricted internet access.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually interesting. There's a new book that came out, and this is Anna didn't talk about this, but there's a new book that came out about autistic kids and their use of media. And there's a bunch of research now, and it's interesting because my son does this. That talk so now that like young kids can have some like tablets with YouTube Kids on it and different sort of kids apps and control that themselves, we're seeing for the first time like what kids pick when they can like control things by themselves, like with obviously with like kid
Sure.
bumpers,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
they're not like scrolling like crazy, but like with the things that are like acceptable for them or appropriate for them. That they're saying two things. One is that like for autistic kids, screen time shouldn't be thought of in the same way as it is for neurotypical kids because a lot of them use it as like self-soothing and self like regulation. So their relationship to it is very different, which I see with my son. But also like that it's common for autistic kids, for example, to find things in foreign languages, which my son does all the time. Like he memorizes all this stuff, all these words in foreign languages, and then writes them. And there's and I thought that was just a quirk of his, but these researchers are saying that parents are freaking out because as the kids get older, like they don't know how to they're writing things, doing things in foreign languages. I said something about that on Twitter the other day, and this woman said, "Oh, my grandson labeled all of their moving boxes in Japanese, and nobody in the family is in Japanese." From there, I can read it, but they like Google translated it, and it was all like labeled
Right.
correctly. So it's I say all of this just because I think that what you're saying is really interesting, which is that we can't just like write it off as uniformly bad or rotting our brains or anything like that, but instead that there are, for people who feel alienated, there's a way of gaining community. For people who are not neurotypical and who need it for self-soothing reasons or whatever, I think there's a lot of ways that we can,
Like you
what my
pointed
son
out,
likes to
anyone
do
who
is
needs to
watch the
learn
same thing
something.
over and over and over again. That there's something about the repetition that he can control, that like he doesn't want to watch Sesame Street on TV because he can't go back and watch the same phrase over and over again, which is what he wants to do because that's how he takes in information. So
Interesting.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Also learning. I mean,
Yeah.
you pointed it out with the kid who learned everything in Japanese. It's not just autistic kids. There are kids
Yeah.
all over our nation who are curious about things, and now they can get that answer instead of only getting the answer if their communities knew the answer.
Right.
Now that kid who is like, what is it like to be a lawyer who's on, in a place where there are no lawyers, they're in a small town, but they read, I don't know, they read To Kill a Mockingbird, and now they want to be Atticus Finch. Well, that kid's got a head start that they never had before, like finding those books in the libraries. It's doable, but there's not people out there. There's not videos showing you how. I grew up without a dad, he passed when I was 5. So like I had to figure out in a very male dominated place how to fix my own car.
Yeah.
Like that's not a thing anymore. Now I just pull it up on YouTube. I can even pull it up on YouTube on Ask a Dad. And I can even get a dad guy to be like, okay, son, like here's how to do this. Like I can get it any way I want it. I can get it from another girl, like such cute girl mechanics teaching stuff.
I know there's all kinds of butch mechanics like doing house projects.
God. Yeah. Like I can, not only do I get to learn it, I can learn it any way that works for me. I can read it, I can watch it, I can have it read to me. Like, I don't know. I'm not unaware of how terrifying and crappy the internet can be for people. I am highly aware of that.
Right.
As a person who is female presenting and has put myself out there as a performer, I'm well aware of how bad it can be. But
Mary was talking about that in the after party.
Yeah.
She was like, I like to think that like music is my refuge, but when I'm playing and my TikTok has a bunch of trolls, it's not super relaxing.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. When you're managing like trolls at the same time as doing your joy hobby, it's not a joy hobby anymore. Yeah. But
it's not. Yeah. Yeah. There's some separate time for that. But
yeah. I don't know.
I think that Anna really, she's a person who's, we didn't ask her age because, never supposed to. Also, there was just such an interesting conversation. But I think that I would place Anna in mid to late 20s in that age group of, the first ones to really come up all internet all the time. And it's, it's funny. They all have, there's a similarity in the way that they talk about it. We came up with way too much of it, but also they're just such lovely people who know things that I spent years trying to figure out. And it's just known by the whole community. Like, oh no, we're doing this now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I don't know. I loved hearing her talk about it. I love hearing people who have only known the internet talk about it because, we're Jessie and I were Gen X. Jessie's mom, you got to watch it. You got to watch us watch it come up. There's this like, we were all, undeniably a part of it. We were there as it was born, and we're all older than the internet. Barely. There was an internet for Jessie and I when we were born. I think there was an internet going on in the,
but not for the regular people.
But it wasn't. It was not what we have. The science was there, but not the stuff. And it's just I don't know, there's this huge cultural divide that can't be crossed, and so I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is it like for you
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah, I have to say, I'm obviously coming from the perspective of somebody that, although I like moved around a lot, I never really had a hard time. I'm always kind of an outsider because I do my own thing, but I never felt like I couldn't fit in. Like I kind of easily moved through social spaces, and found what I wanted. And then when I didn't, I was into my own things and read my books and kept my journals and did my things that I wanted to do. And the reason that I say that I am glad that I didn't grow up with that is that I feel like I had a long time to myself to like do a lot of like introspection. And sometimes I'm nostalgic for that because I feel like in our culture there's so much like bombardment of so many different so much different input. And actually I think that's one of the reasons why I like doing this show, because it like forces this like sustained conversation, that feels good to me, that I think it's hard to have in our culture. So I totally hear everything you're saying, and I hear what Anna was saying too. And I am not like a technophobe, and I don't think we need to get rid of the internet, but I just feel like I feel lucky that I get to like, maybe this is a very Gen X thing, but I feel very lucky that I get to use it for my purposes now, but that I got to become like a full person before that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see what you mean, because that's where that's kind of what I was saying. I'm so glad the internet wasn't around, because I was such a lost kid anyway, that
Mhm.
if I had gotten on the internet and gone some undesirable rabbit hole, I
Yeah.
could see how it would really
Mm.
have a huge effect on lives.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that's why I see happening. I see these kids, not anymore because I don't work at schools anymore, but when I
Yeah.
work at schools, these kids had such devastating consequences because the judgment was poor, the impulse control was not there.
Mhm.
And so they would do these crazy things and throw them out there and think it's just hilarious, but then pay a huge price,
Yeah. Mhm.
because maturity and discernment takes a long time to develop.
A long
And
time.
yeah, and so I think that's what your growing
Yeah.
up is put right out there,
Yeah.
and all the bumbling and foolishness and
Yeah.
things that make you feel so cool one time and so cringeworthy, in the
Yeah.
next era of your life. I could just see how it would have been difficult for me
Yeah.
to manage that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I see what you mean. I'm so glad that I could be a kid and now have access. Because Emily, you're right. Yesterday we were just talking. I don't know what it was, and we're going to Google it. Anything you want to Google? Oh,
Mhm.
are onions bad for
Anything.
dogs? Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And you can get,
Yeah.
and if you know how to read, the articles that you dig up, and if they seem like a reasonable source, you can get really viable information.
Yeah.
But you can also believe liars too.
Yeah.
You just
Mhm.
have to
Yeah.
be careful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it could very well be that my um I don't know what it's called. I need a word. It's so weird. I love it. And like nostalgic is if I was looking back on something and
Yeah.
seeing it with rose colored glasses. I'm sort
Right.
of looking forward at something and seeing it with rose colored glasses.
Yeah.
Maybe that's only possible because I grew up without it and
Yeah.
I have such a deep understanding of self. I have such,
Yeah.
I'm not just comfortable being alone. If I don't get quiet alone time,
Yeah.
preferably reading or just sitting in silence with
Yeah.
myself, I'm a terrible person.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
maybe I'm only able to see the benefits and the sweetness of it because I
Yeah.
grew up without it. I don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's I'm just fascinated with people who always had it. It's
Yeah.
just so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you because I never had it, but like, what's that like?
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
And
Your
what I like
whole
about it,
life.
yeah. And there's so much talent out there. And I think
Yeah.
it's really nice to have platforms where people can display their talent. Then they don't have
Yeah.
to get an agent or move
Yeah.
to some certain state in the country to try to make it there.
To
And
be
it,
controlled. Yeah.
yes, right,
Yeah.
right. And so many of them, are just, it also makes you appreciate staying power, because I've watched so many people on TikTok and Instagram who are just so funny. They're just so great, but they kept doing the same thing. And it made me realize, real talent has a way of staying relevant, and that is
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. I don't know why we got off on this rabbit trail, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that, talking out of both
Well, we're
sides
talking
of my
about an
mouth.
internet kid, so we're talking about the
Yeah,
internet. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I'm very glad it's there for them, because they
Yeah.
have the platforms to do it. They have
Well,
the
and I was
opportunity.
thinking too, like, I remember, like, one of the things that I was thinking about as both of you were talking is that things don't exist for you if you don't know about them, and
True,
I
right.
think very much about when I was young and I wanted to go, like, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I went to college and I saw my first philosophy professor and I was like,
Mhm.
I want to do that. And I did for a long period of time. And
Mm.
I needed to see I needed to
Right.
see a woman doing something that looked like something I could do. And I remember the very first day for standing and like writing on the chalkboard and um, feeling like, yes, that I want that. And it felt very different from me than all of the examples of like the middle and high school teachers that I had. It was a different
Yeah.
vibe, like everything about it. And um that was an in-person thing because it was 1996 and there was no internet like we know it now. But like, I think that there are a lot of ways that what both of you are talking about is for young people who maybe don't have examples in their own life around them of lawyers, like you said, or of like people
Right.
running different professions. They could be like, no,
Mhm.
there are real people that exist.
Right.
I could see myself doing that. And
Mhm.
you can't aspire for things that you don't know about,
Right.
and
Mhm.
that's why I used to think that I used to put a lot greater emphasis on college education than I do now. But it's not just because I don't care as much now, it's because the world has changed. And I feel like what
Mhm.
a university education did for me in 1996 was expand my world and make me dream bigger dreams, and
Mhm.
that's what I got out of it. Like,
Right.
I wanted to dream bigger dreams. But that's because an internet didn't exist then, and I feel like a lot of kids
Right.
now can dream bigger dreams than just like their immediate surroundings because their immediate surroundings are so large,
Right.
so much larger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely.
clearly.
Yeah.
And diversity and inclusion, right? Like you said, you
Mhm.
needed to see someone who looked like you
Yeah.
doing the work that you'd
Right.
like to see.
Right.
The internet provides that. I
Yeah.
can, I try to, and again, it's all supposition, but I retroactively think of my young 13-year-old
Yeah.
bisexual nerdy self
Mhm.
being able to connect to other people and seeing a, a bisexual singer songwriter
Yeah. Yeah.
in 1991
Yeah.
just open and out there and talking about poetry.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I didn't find that till I found the internet.
Yeah.
I didn't find
Yeah.
like, oh, actually I could do that maybe, and
Yeah.
I did in my
Mhm.
my mid to late 30s, but I
Yeah.
like to imagine that there's some younger folks who got
Right.
started a lot earlier because they're like, oh
Right.
no, people like me do that. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not just for that kind of person, like,
I have
yeah.
women who write to like women I don't know who write to me fairly often on social media and tell me that like they get a lot out of just seeing me exist. And that's really
Right. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, it sounds dumb, but
No, it
like,
doesn't. It sounds great.
yeah, but just like
It
I
sounds
see
very real. Yeah.
I see what you're doing and I really appreciate it. And I like your work and I like your writing and it makes me feel valid or whatever, and I think that that's the beauty of a lot of this. So yeah, I don't know. It was really interesting to hear her perspective on what it was like to grow up with the internet and how it shaped her career and how like she continues to in all these different ways, not just like in sex work, but in her marketing jobs that she does and just in her work that she's doing independently. Like you know what I think is interesting now that I'm saying this out loud and I haven't really processed it is that a lot of what she was talking about is joy and getting back to joy, getting back to the Tumblr days that I know
Right.
a lot of people have a lot
MySpace.
of nostalgia for Tumblr. I never was a Tumblr person. I don't really get Tumblr. I think I was a little
I didn't either.
well, yeah, it's like a very specific thing
Yeah.
that people were very into, but I think that was like an opening that at its height it was where people could be very creative and find the people that they were creative in a way like them. And I heard her and I think a lot of our episodes are about like joy and finding joy, but that's what I really heard her talk about is like how do we get back to that time where we felt joy and that the stuff that we were putting on the internet was an outpouring of our joy or of what we think is important.
Right.
Because right now there's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
how do you cut through that noise and create, but do it in community and in a way that feels good? And that's an important thing to think about.
Yeah. I think it's a question everybody's asking
Yeah.
though. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Mhm.
Regardless of
It
Yeah.
is.
or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
we're all just trying to fight through that noise.
How do I?
Yeah.
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 That's probably a
Yeah.
good
That's
note
another
to
thing this show really seems to be bringing out. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good note to end on though. And that's kind of what now that I'm reflecting on it, that's what I'm getting out of her episode is like we started
Yeah.
in the internet to find our people and to learn things we wanted to learn and it was very exciting and then it has become an overwhelming part of our lives, but it's balance. Like how do we get back to like we're having the three of us are having conversations that we would like to have, but we don't make space for. And the
That's
internet
true.
is facilitating that.
That's
And
yeah.
Right.
That's absolutely
that
true.
could be a source
Uh-huh.
of joy.
Yeah.
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 All right. Well,
I
I'm
like
Jessie
that.
Sage.
Despite all the stuff you can find out there, here's a
Yeah.
little bit of joy that we found.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like with anything, right? Like with anything. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Jessie Sage. This is When We're Not Hustling. This is the episode with Anna, AKA Honey Whipped Feta.
I'm Emily Foster. Oh, Honey Whipped Feta. Sorry. It's just so good. I'm Emily Foster. I am the producer of When We're Not Hustling. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, anything you can to get the word out. Have a great day.
and I'm Jessie's mom. Still.
Still my mom.